The airport was unusually quiet that rainy evening. The echo of soft footsteps and the gentle hum of delayed flight announcements hung in the air like a lullaby. Daniel Reeves sat alone in the VIP lounge, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit, yet visibly weighed down by something heavier than business meetings or stock reports. His eyes, tired and distant, gazed blankly at the tarmac through the foggy glass wall. He had built an empire, had more money than he could ever spend, but tonight, like many nights before, he was just a lonely man with no one to wait for him at home. He hadn't spoken to a soul in hours, preferring the silence. His heart still ached for his late wife, Grace, taken from him 2 years ago by a sudden aneurysm. Since her passing, everything felt meaningless: his wealth, his mansion, his name on Forbes, it all felt like a cruel joke. He was successful in the world's eyes, but shattered inside. A ghost of who he once was. And then came the voice, quiet, shaky, and impossibly innocent. "Can I sit here?" Daniel turned, mildly startled. Standing beside him was a little girl, no more than 7, with big brown eyes and pale skin that hinted at something more than just a long flight. She clutched a stuffed elephant and wore a pink knit cap that barely covered the fact she had no hair beneath it. She looked fragile, like a flower in winter. He blinked. Sure. Of course." She climbed up onto the leather seat next to him, her small body trembling slightly as she pulled her legs up. "Thanks." The other chairs were full. Daniel looked around. The lounge was nearly empty. He tilted his head. "Are you alone?" She shook her head and pointed across the room. "My mom is over there. She's getting tea. She said I should rest my legs before the flight. Sometimes they hurt when I walk too much." There was something about her that made his throat tighten. She looked so much like Grace had at that age, same eyes, same quiet presence. For a moment, he was caught in a strange loop of grief and déjà vu. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Ava," she said. "What's yours?" "Daniel." "Hi, Daniel," she said with a weak smile. "You look sad." He blinked, surprised again. Kids don't usually say that. He cleared his throat. "Maybe I am." Ava nodded as if she understood far more than a child her age should. "I get sad too. Mostly when I'm at the hospital and the chemo makes me feel yucky. Or when mommy cries in the kitchen at night when she thinks I'm asleep." Daniel's breath caught. You're sick. Leukemia," she said softly. "Stage 3. But my doctor says I'm a fighter. I even made it through the last round of treatment without throwing up." She smiled like it was a victory, and for her, it was. Daniel couldn't look away. He felt something crack open inside his chest. Something long buried. Before he could say more, her mother walked over, mid-30s, worn face, eyes tired but kind. She paused, concerned when she saw Ava sitting beside a stranger. "It's okay, Mommy," Ava said quickly. "This is Daniel. He's nice. I asked if I could sit here." Her mother offered a hesitant smile. "Thank you for keeping her company." He stood politely and nodded. "It's no trouble at all. She's wonderful." The woman introduced herself as Claire. A single mom, working part-time at a diner in Kansas. They were flying to Boston to try an experimental treatment funded by a children's foundation, one last shot before running out of options. As the flight announcement came over the speaker, Daniel surprised himself. "Which seat are you two in?" he asked. Claire hesitated. "Economy, row 32. Daniel took a deep breath. "Would you mind switching? I have a private cabin. More space, more comfort. It might help Ava rest. Easier." Claire's eyes widened. I couldn't ask you to do that." "You're not," he said softly. "I'm offering." Ava looked up hopefully. "Mommy, can we?" Minutes later, they were settled in Daniel's first-class suite. Ava snuggled into the plush recliner, her elephant tucked under her arm, eyes wide with wonder. Claire sat across from Daniel, still unsure why this stranger was being so generous. Over the next few hours, Daniel learned about their life, about Claire working double shifts, about Ava's diagnosis at 4, about the countless nights spent in hospital rooms and how they sold their car just to afford the plane ticket. And in turn, he shared his story. About losing Grace. About being too focused on building his empire to see how quickly time slipped through his fingers. About how hollow his victories felt without someone to share them with. As Ava dozed off, her head resting on a blanket Daniel had placed carefully behind her neck, Claire reached out and touched his hand. "Thank you. You didn't have to be kind, but you were." He met her eyes, and for the first time in years, felt something other than pain stirring in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or healing. The next few weeks changed everything. Daniel visited the hospital in Boston, unannounced. Ava's face lit up when she saw him, and Claire hugged him like an old friend. He became part of their journey, paying for the treatment, arranging the best specialists, even hiring Claire a lawyer to help with the medical debt. Against the odds, Ava's condition stabilized. Then improved. And slowly, miraculously, the cancer began to retreat. 6 months later, Ava rang the bell that marked the end of her chemotherapy. Daniel was there, tears in his eyes. Claire took his hand and whispered, "You saved her." He shook his head. "No, she saved me." They stood there, 3 souls once lost in the noise of the world, now bound by something more powerful than fate. Not all love stories begin with romance. Some begin with a question. Can I sit here? And sometimes, a single seat beside a stranger changes everything.